Apparently, this meeting is being recorded. My name is Bradley Edmister. I'm a partner here at Morgan Lewis, and I'd like to thank all of you for coming out tonight for today's talk. This is actually a very special evening because, believe it or not, this is the first physical business and public policy program that we have held at the Japan-America Society of Greater Philadelphia since coming out of the pandemic. And in some respects, it's a bit of a trial run for all of us, getting used to doing these programs again, and also getting all of you used to coming to these types of events and having this kind of content. So we certainly hope it'll become a habit and that you'll come back again in the future. And speaking of coming out of the pandemic, I think it was in the spring when I sat down with Matt Wilson at the Tokyo American Club for lunch, and he related to me the extraordinary things that he had been doing at Temple University, Japan, since becoming dean in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic. And it wasn't just about surviving, it was about thriving and dramatically increasing student enrollments and other initiatives that have really revitalized Temple University, Japan. Now, for those of you who have not lived in Japan or had an opportunity like I have over the years to be there, Temple University, Japan is actually a vital part of the fabric of the US-Japan community in Tokyo. Everybody knows it. It's very famous, and a lot of people have come through there, and it's really inspired a lot of both Americans and Japanese to participate and even dedicate their careers in many cases to US-Japan related activities. So without further ado, I'd like to personally thank Matt for taking this evening out of just a few days he has here in Philadelphia of his valuable time to come and share with us a little bit about his experiences of what he's been doing. And I hope it's as fascinating to you as it was to me. Thank you.
Appreciate that. See if we can get that to work. All right, so there we go. So we got the disclaimers. So you heard I'm the guinea pig. So that means if I bore you, put you to sleep, then it was a trial run, and we'll just kind of leave it at that. But really excited to be here. I flew in from Tokyo on Monday night, so I'm not sure where I am, what time it is, or even if this is realistic or a dream. So if I happen to just keel over, just throw some water on me, and trust me, I'll just jump back up and I'll continue to talk to you as well. But really excited about that. And Brad, thank you so much for that introduction, and to the association for welcoming me here this evening. Just a little bit by way of background to fill things in a little bit. So I am originally from the Rocky Mountain region, but I found my way to Temple University to pursue a degree in law. And one of the attractions of Temple University to me was the fact that I had discovered that there was a Japan campus that Temple University was operating in Tokyo. To me, it was amazing that you would have a state-related institution that would set up a campus in Tokyo and be offering degree opportunities. Just not for like a study abroad, but something that was more than that as well. And so I'll be talking about the campus and some of the challenges that we've had. I also have to thank Adelaide Ferguson, who's here tonight, one of my supporters, mentors, and she made sure that once I was in the Temple family, that I was going to stay in the Temple family as well, as we work together and have done a lot as well. So one of my people that I admire most in the world, thank you for being here this evening as well. So also, before I forget, and as you leave, in true Japanese form, I needed to bring an omiyage for everyone. I see some of you found it already, but on the table outside, there's some Temple University Japan campus chopsticks. So make sure that you get those as well, as we celebrate you and we celebrate Japan and the bridges between Japan and Philadelphia as well. So instead of me just talking, I thought I'd kick things off with our 40th anniversary, so that you can kind of get an idea of our campus and what it is. I couldn't bring you all to the campus, but if you're in Tokyo, stop by. So I thought that I would do the next best thing. So hopefully this will work.
TUJ is 100% Tokyo, 100% American degree, and 100% English.
I really think the TUJ is an ideal institution, bringing together the best of both worlds. We're here in the center of Tokyo, at the heart of a region that's becoming so important within international economics, international politics. At the same time, we're an American university. And so for those wanting a US degree, they can do so whilst being based in this fantastic location.
So I really like that our students are always up for a challenge, critically questioning why things have to be a certain way. Our students are always feeling free to be who they really are. And I feel like this environment at TUJ nurtures that.
There's so many wonderful things about TUJ, but one of the best features that I think TUJ is the diverse student body. There's no other place like here that the students can study with their peers from all over the world and from teachers from all over the world.
You can never look at somebody and know where they came from or what language they speak or what experiences they've had. It's just such a rewarding thing to meet people from so many different backgrounds and cultures and languages.
The young people who benefit from TUJ's unique education are equipped to reach across geographic borders, the boundaries of language, culture, and background, to find commonalities, to respect differences, and to devise common solutions to the problems that face us all in the 21st century.
Where else can you find this in Japan? Nowhere, only at TUJ.
TUJ is a hub. It's a network. It's the students, it's the faculty, it's the staff, it's the alumni and the community that support us. I can see that network growing even more over the next 40 years.
All right. All right. Let's see if we can get this. Oh, here we go. So let me just introduce you a little bit to, our campus beyond that. That was through the mouths of some of our students, some of our alums, some of our faculty, and our staff as well. But literally 40 years ago, in 1982, Temple University established its Japan campus. And so we have, at this point in time, 1,841 undergraduate students. And there's a story behind that you heard from Brad. This is actually my third stint at Temple University's Japan campus. As I mentioned, the Japan campus was what attracted me to come to Philadelphia and to pursue my Juris Doctor degree. The law program was established in 1994. I came to Temple in 1995, studied abroad there in 1997. The idea being I could study in English and also in Japanese, by the way. I could study international law, I could study Japanese law, I could do an internship. And it wasn't just a summer, it was an entire semester. So I worked with General Electric Healthcare Systems in their legal and patent department as a law student, where literally I was the senior most expert on US law, which was scary because I was just a second-year law student at the time, right? But really had an opportunity to work with the colleagues in a cross-border environment, and it was fascinating. We rely a lot on experts in Tokyo, and so we had practitioners that were teaching, and it was just a really fabulous experience. The undergraduate program is our biggest program, and when I was there in 1997, we probably had only about 350, maybe 400 undergraduate students. And there was a reason for that. And as we talk about kind of challenges that are there, and I'll kind of jump around a little bit, the government did not welcome us with open arms. And I'll come back to why that was and what we did to overcome. But things changed. In 2005, I was there. I was hired by Adelaide to be a law professor and be director of the law program. And one day I woke up about a year later and they'd made me general counsel of the campus and also associate dean over the graduate programs. And then the next year I woke up and they made me also associate dean and running the day-to-day of the undergraduate program. I think I had 3 or 4 roles at the time. But it was an exciting time because we were negotiating with the government to obtain a certain legal status. And I'll come back to that in a little bit. But as we attained that, it enabled us to go out and to sponsor student visas and to have people come not only for a short term, but for their entire time. And so as that happened, we started to grow, and then 2011 happened with the tsunami and the earthquake, and all of the foreigners left. I guess there were 2 hits. One was the Lehman shock of 2008, and boom, that took a lot of people, foreigners out. And then you had 2011, and everybody was worried about the radioactivity and things, and so all the foreigners left. 2014, that was when the foreigners started to return. And as they started to return, our undergraduate program started to see some additional growth. So we were probably 800 students undergraduate in 2014, 2015, and continued to grow. 2 years ago, when I came in, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, as campus president and dean, we were at 1,200 students. So within 2 years, we've actually increased by 50%. And so it's been amazing to just see the boom that we have. And so we're actually bigger than many of the small liberal arts colleges, or many of the liberal arts colleges that you find here on the East Coast in Tokyo. So we've got other programs. We've got law, we've got business, and we have teaching English as a second language in our education. So we've got 2 law degrees, 1 master's in management, and 1 master's in education. We also have a Ph.D. So we have a Ph.D. in applied linguistics that we have. We also have our education is in Tokyo and in Osaka. So our students in English can earn 10 degrees undergraduate entirely in Tokyo without ever coming to Philadelphia. If they want, they can spend part of their time in Philadelphia, part in Japan, part at our campus in Rome. They can study abroad and do different destinations. So really, if you think about it, it's one temple because they're all the same. And one of the real cool things, if you think globally, right, I tell our students all the time, you are blessed. Because if you procrastinate, not that students ever do that, if you procrastinate, it's the middle of the night and you're stuck on a math problem, or you need some help in terms of your writing, well, it's the middle of the day here in Philadelphia. And so you just send an email, you send a chat, and they can give you tutoring, during the evening or the middle of the night in Tokyo. You can get it here, and vice versa. If our students spend their time in Tokyo and they want career assistance here in the United States, they can use our career services department. Our library literally is 24/7. And so we've got it staffed now where the student who's doing research here in Philadelphia, if they procrastinate the middle of the night, they've got a question, they can actually chat with our librarians in Tokyo and get that service. So it really is a unique thing that is just amazing that Temple has done that. And our growth truly has been remarkable that's there as well. And just to give you kind of an idea and overview of some of our majors, our international business is our biggest major. And I'm so proud of that. When I was there as associate dean before, that was one of the initiatives that we worked on. And we said, if you put international business in, it will be the largest, and it has been. Communication, particularly video production, that's our second. Art is just booming. Psychology, economics, international affairs, general studies, Japanese, Asian studies. Computers is relatively new. And political science, and then undeclared. I call it exploratory majors. But because of our growth, we are booming. Many American universities are cutting back. They're really struggling. They are eliminating positions and professors. We're going reverse. So I hired 8 full-time faculty members last year. I've got 5 searches going right now, and I'm going to try and add another 3 or 4 in terms of where things are. I've been very creative with space. And so our building, we moved into it 3 years ago. I have remodeled it consistently throughout the pandemic. We went on permanent telework, and I went, great, classrooms. And so I created 3 new classrooms. I'm creating a mini Broad Street around in our Shotengai, our shopping area. that will have temple teas because I'm moving our staff into the Shotengai so I can create more classrooms and collaboration spaces. And so we're having some fun in Tokyo as well. But the idea really is, you know, 1 degree, programming involving multiple campuses, and the students that study in Tokyo, they get a degree from the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. It truly is a magical thing that's been going on for 40 years. We have over 360,000 alumni living in 145 countries that have chosen to study at Temple. We've got 1,000 students that will study abroad. So even our students in Tokyo, they will study here and there and literally everywhere. It's pretty cool. And if you think about our international environment, our undergraduate is our biggest, so I'll focus on that. 40% of our students are Japanese, 40% of our students are from the US, and 21% of our students are from 65 other countries. So we've got 67 countries that are represented. So it's really cool from a student standpoint, very international. As people come together, they study together, they learn from one another's cultures that are there as well. And you can kind of see how we have, I mentioned that, how we have just grown and grown and grown, particularly regularly. Interestingly, we run on a trimester system because the Japanese school year runs from April, right, to March, and our Japanese students, all their colleagues are starting at the Japanese universities on April 1st, and they don't want to wait until the end of August, so they will start at our summer semester in May. We also have some issues with the Japanese immigration authorities. I'll get to that because that's part of my theme today. And so that keeps a bunch of our students there in the summer as well. And we've really got some fascinating international instructors, primarily that are based in Tokyo, but we also have visiting instructors as well. And so Professor Brown, who you heard in the video, one of the preeminent experts on relationships between Eastern Europe and Japan. You'll see him in the media. Jeff Kingston, one of the best in Asian studies, just amazing. You'll turn on NHK, CNN, NBC, BBC, and you'll see Jeff talking about it. Professor Hadi, he's an Olympian, a judo champion from Lebanon who competed, if you remember, the Olympic Dream Team basketball. That was his Olympics, and so don't get in a fight with Professor Hadi. I mean, that's the key. And really folks from all around the world, educated in the US and elsewhere, that are providing an international environment. And we really have fun, both inside of the classroom and then outside of the classroom as well. So we will run for our students cultural trips, excursions every weekend. We have top leaders. That middle photo was the head of the US Embassy. Joe Young was his name, together with some of our students. And then community, one of the things is I believe that students should be put first. And you'll see me engaging with students on the basketball court. You'll see me playing volleyball with them. And even as a university president, you know, I will do what I can for the students, including my wife and I just took the students to Hakone, 4 of them, to do the Hakone Open Air Museum, to do volcanic boiled eggs, to do a Japanese lunch, and to do an onsen. No better way to get closer to your students than to do that as well, right? And one of the things I do is I try and de-stress students. So we have something, it's a tradition that I started when I was president at the University of Akron, where I would bring food to students. So you'll see me once a month in our atrium serving food to students. So Monday, before I hopped on a plane, I was serving students Thanksgiving desserts from the Tokyo American Club, 1,000 cakes and pie pieces that we distributed as well. So we have some fun that's there as well. And then special opportunities. In addition to that, we have top diplomats from around the world. So the gentleman in the middle is the ambassador from Ukraine. He was in our classroom 4 days before Russia invaded Ukraine, talking to our students about the danger that Russia posed not only to Ukraine, but the rest of the world. 3 weeks ago, we had the ambassador from India. January 31st, I've got Rahm Emanuel, ambassador from the United States to Japan, who will be in our building. We also had, it's one of the great things about TUJ. The only place that I've ever seen that had an ambassador mix-up happened this year at TUJ, where we had the ambassador of Lithuania coming in to talk to one of our classes, and he had to postpone his visit. So I was scheduled to meet with the ambassador, And since he canceled, I slotted in another meeting. And that same day, that same time, my secretary comes and she's pressing her nose up against my window, looking like it's a panic. I'm in the middle of the meeting and I'm like, okay, come on in. She's like, the ambassador's here. And I'm like, well, that can't be. I mean, he canceled, right? And so she's like, no, I just got a phone call. He's here. And I said, well, go talk to Professor Brown, you know, because he's going to be in Professor Brown's class. So she goes, interrupts Professor Brown's class. They go downstairs. Sure enough, there's an ambassador there from a country that starts with L-I. It was the ambassador of Libya, who was actually in our building, and instead of the ambassador of Lithuania, who was coming later. So that's kind of how we educate at TUJ. We are, and I asked the question, I mean, aren't there a lot of American universities that are based in Tokyo? No. Back in the 1980s, there were about 40 American and European universities that made forays into Japan. And because it's so difficult there to operate on so many different levels, just the opposition you get, they all folded up and they left. So there's really just 2 American universities that are left, no European universities. It's Temple, which has taken off and has grown. And if anybody knows of any space in Tokyo, I'm looking, so please let me know. And the other one is a small college in Wisconsin by the name of Lakeland, and they offer 2-year degrees, struggling a bit, but they're the ones that kind of have held out as well. So it really puts us in a special place where we get folks from all around the world. And one of the things that I would like to do, and we've been talking as well with your organization, we have an Institute for Contemporary Asian Studies that brings in top speakers. And in today's world, everything used to be live. But we're also doing online programming, and I want to plug this association into our Institute of Contemporary Asian Studies because we do run programming that you can access in the middle of the day or in the evening as well. So I'm looking for ways that we can collaborate and we can assist one another. That's one of the things I'd like to do because we really do have top speakers that come as well. And you can see all-time record high enrollment, a record donation. And this, I'm going to come back to this. We had the Minister of Education visit last summer. And that really is an amazing story that I'm going to tell. And I'd love to hear it. So, all right, there we go. That was my commercial break for you. Let's talk about what I came, and then I'm going to open things up for questions. But you know, Temple's theme and motto is perseverance conquers. And when I first saw that as a student, I don't think I really knew what that meant. Here, as I stand before you today as president and dean of the Japan campus, I can tell you a story. Because when Temple 40 years ago showed up in Japan, as the story goes, they went to meet with the Ministry of Education. And they sat down with the minister and they said, we want to provide American-style education in English here in Japan. It will be more affordable, it will be accessible, and we think that we can truly make an impact here in Japan. And the Minister of Education, and I'm paraphrasing, basically said, well, you know what you can do? You can pack up and you can go back to Philadelphia because we don't need you here. And so Temple at the time was, what do? We thought that we were going to be welcomed with open arms. We thought that they would give us a solution. You know, we need to find our way into the Japanese education community, but the reception was stone cold. Fortunately, Temple didn't give up. What Temple did was they went and they found a partner. They found a partner to start up the operation, understanding that it was going to have to be outside of the Japanese education system. And so at first, the idea was, well, let's go out and let's educate people in English, right? So we'll get them ready for college. We'll also start a graduate degree teaching English as a second language. And so Temple went out together with its partner and it recruited a lot of students. And this is the 1980s. Things are booming. If you remember Japan Inc., Japan's going to take over the world. You know, everybody is just so afraid. And I think a lot of American universities and entities were trying to rush into Japan as well, right? And so the partner goes out, gets a bunch of students, and as the students are coming in, the partner decides to steal the money and run. So the partner disappears, and I can only imagine the leadership at Temple going, okay, we've gone into Japan, the Minister of Education said leave, our partner just stole all of our money, and what do we do? And the conversation went, you know what, Temple's here, Temple's committed, Temple needs to persevere. And so Temple ate that loss and off they went to the races. But it wasn't easy being outside of the system in a very expensive area. And so Temple actually started to move. So it was in one location in Shibuya, and then it moved to another location in Shibakoen, and then it actually moved out into the suburbs, and that didn't work. And so then it moved back into Tokyo, a place called Takanonobaba. And so by the time that Temple comes on my radar in 1994, 1995, Temple settles in a place called Minami Azabu. That's kind of the embassy district. It's close to the Korean embassy, the Chinese embassy, a lot of different embassies that are there in an office building. So it really didn't feel like a university, but the university is about the education, not about the facilities necessarily. And so at that point in time, that was when Temple started to do it. But it still had the governmental opposition. So when I studied at Temple in 1997 as a study abroad student, I actually had a Bunka Katsudo visa, a cultural activities visa, because we couldn't get student visas. If I went to some place and I wanted a student discount, well, we're not part of the Japanese system, so I couldn't get a student discount. Students in Japan get discounts on their commuter passes. Well, that didn't happen. Other institutions, kind of the education reaction, Japanese universities didn't know how to react to Temple. In fact, it was interesting for our undergraduate students, if they wanted to go to a Japanese university, they would say, okay, we're going to recognize the credits and classes from Temple main campus, but we're not going to recognize it from Temple Japan because you're not recognized by the Japanese government. And we would scratch our head going, well, that's really strange because all of our classes are the same. The students graduate from Pennsylvania. The Japan campus doesn't issue degrees. And so why are you reacting this way, right? So we truly, in the eyes of the government and in the educational sector, we were viewed as being outside of the system. Japanese professors didn't necessarily want to collaborate with our professors. There wasn't a lot of recognition when you talked about education. You know, Temple was truly an outsider. Meanwhile, they were treating all of the other institutions the same way. And one by one, they were disappearing from Japan, giving up, moving on to countries like Singapore or to China or returning back to the United States that was there as well. The Japanese market was challenging. American higher education is expensive. Japan, public or private, the universities receive a lot of subsidies, right? And it's very difficult to get in, but once you get in, the studies are not as strenuous as you might find at an American university. Whereas Temple, okay, you can get in, but it's going to be very difficult for you to survive, right? You've got to do it in English as well. So there's a lot of market challenges in terms of pricing. And I've told folks, if as an educational institution you're getting into Japan to make money, it's not going to happen, right? It's just not. You've got to be doing it for the greater public good, to build bridges between countries, to help globalize and internationalize the students that are there. And it's been interesting to kind of watch, because what happened was is in 2003 and 4, Temple was really struggling. And that was about the time that I had come on the scene. Temple University had hired a new dean, a non-traditional gentleman who had been in marketing. He had his Ph.D., he was working for AIG, and he was tasked with financially turning around the university because Temple was at a crossroads. If the student body did not increase, could Temple persevere anymore? And that was kind of the situation that I came into as well. And part of our strategy was, let's go and increase the student base, which if you've got governmental opposition, you've got the education reaction, and you've got the Japanese market challenges, it makes it near impossible. So the goal was, and together with the help of many people here in Philadelphia, Robert Reinstein, if you know Bob, he was one of the key factors in moving this forward together with the president of, okay, we need to get recognition from the Japanese government. So we engaged in negotiations with the Japanese government, which was truly interesting to be a part of that. And, you know, we would go and we would have meetings with the Japanese government. We would explain who we were about the American system, and they would just look at us with these glazed over eyes. And the response was basically, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. So if you want to be recognized, become a Japanese university. And we would explain to them, Temple is not a Japanese university. We cannot become a Japanese university. We also would explain that if we became a Japanese university, our students from the United States, because they're at an American university, they can use federal financial aid. Military, they can use their GI Bill. If we become a Japanese university, you can't do that. So someone like me, as a student from the United States, I had absolutely no money when I was a student. I could not have studied at TUJ but for U.S. federal financial aid. So you'd be wiping out all of those students if we became a Gakko Hojin, is what it was. But they wanted us to do that. And we were like, Gakko Hojin, we looked at it. This isn't going to work. The folks here in Philadelphia were like, we don't want the Japanese government to take control of us. Because if you're a Gakko Hojin, they literally tell you what you can and you can't do, all the way down to the type of buildings you have, how wide your halls are, how many doors you have to have, whether you can do new programs, who you can hire and who you can't. And we were like, we cannot be in a situation where the Japanese government is telling Temple how to provide a Temple education. So what do? You've got to be creative. You've got to persevere. In Japan, it can take a long time to get this done, right? But the thought was, and this was together with the help of some very influential Japanese politicians. Hosoda is one of them. He's Speaker of the House right now in Japan. And then also with the U.S. Embassy, we elevated this to a trade issue. And so the U.S. Embassy was advocating on our behalf. The solution became that Japan was going to change its education law, and it was going to create a new designation called Foreign University, Temple University, comma, branch campus, Japan campus. So when you see the Temple University, comma, branch campus, Japan campus, they mirrored that in the change of the education law so that we could be recognized. And that recognition, what it led to was, it led to us being able to sponsor student visas. So now I can have students that can come and get their entire undergraduate degrees, their graduate degrees, and they can be with us. That is just truly amazing. Our students could get recognition. They can get discount train passes, right? They can get discounts that are there. The Japanese universities, magically, it's like, oh, we'll recognize your credits if you're taking it at the Japan campus, right? The credibility that we got was really high. Now, that didn't solve all of our problems, because even though we could study, even though we could sponsor student visas, for instance, I sit down to negotiate with one of the top immigration authorities, and I said, okay, my question is about summer. Do our students have to study during the summer? Because there's full-time requirements. And they looked at me and they said, well, let's see. So your summer it's just like you take August off, right? Just like Japanese universities? I'm like, no, we're on the US calendar. And they're like, oh, so how does that work? So explain to them about the US calendar. So they're like, how long is your summer break? And I said, well, we end our spring semester early May, late April. We start our fall semester in August, and he's literally counting on his hands, and he's like, they're off for 4 months? And I said, yeah, and they're considered full-time, and they go out and work, and they earn money for their education. And he's like, but they're off for 4 months? And I said, yeah. And he's like, well, they're going to get in trouble. And I said, no, they're not going to get in trouble. They're going to work. Oh, no, they're going to get in trouble. And so he said, if a student who's on a sponsored visa wants to stay in Japan, they've got to take classes full-time even in the summer. So there's a lot of disconnects because the system continues to be different. And that's just one interesting example in terms of where things are. There's also another interesting thing is we operate really on a nonprofit model. Temple is nonprofit. Temple 100% owns us, and so we're operating that same mindset, right? Public service, public good. But the Japanese government, for whatever reason, even though they recognized it, they still continue to tax us. So like our students have to pay tax on their tuition, which now is 10%. So we don't tell them that, but we take a 10% haircut basically because we're paying the Japanese government as we've had more and more things that are going. It's been, quite the road. And it's been interesting though, just to see, where we have come. In the 2 years that I've come in, it was amazing. I was able to get into Japan in the middle of the pandemic, even though it was closed to foreigners. That tells you the impact that Temple has, that they would make an exception for me where I've got the Prime Minister's office calling the consulate in Denver saying, you need to let Mr. Wilson in. My visa was processed in 2 hours, and I was on a plane 2 days later on the way to Japan, careful not to post anything on social media, and people saw me going, wait, what? You're in Japan? How did you get in Japan? Like, what? Wait, what are you talking about, right? So it's been amazing to see that type of progress. Last summer, as I mentioned, we had the Minister of Education come on our campus, the first time ever. And as I was talking to Hagi Uda Daiji, I was like, you know how significant this is. And I told him the story of what had happened 39 years ago. And he just laughed. He said, boy, it's amazing what 4 decades can do. But he was so enamored by his visit to TUJ, he had 45 minutes scheduled. He stayed for 1 hour and 45 minutes. He was in our classrooms, and he came out going, this is so amazing. He's like, at many Japanese universities, people just lecture. You guys are doing hands-on practical work here. He engaged with our students. The next day on his national press conference, he talked about Temple University and TUJ for like 4 or 5 minutes. It was truly, truly amazing. And the things that we have been able to do, probably the most popular politician in Japan, Kono Taro is his name, he has become a major supporter of Temple University. The borders were closed to students. Part of my job was to try and knock those doors open so that we could get students in. And it got me inside of the Japanese political machine, and we became very, very good friends. And so it was amazing. He actually agreed to be our commencement speaker this last May. And as he stood up, he said, I want to thank Temple University and all of the leaders of the university for persevering. He said, I also want to apologize to Temple because we have made this as hard as possible on you. And we need more foreign students. We need more influences like Temple, here. And I'm going to do what I can to support Temple going forward. So it's truly been an amazing journey as we come and we hit our 40th anniversary, as we continue to grow, as we've been able to overcome governmental opposition, and it's actually become, except for taxes, it's actually become much, much better. The educational reaction has been tremendous. In fact, I had a national university that I connected with 2 months ago, and I said, okay, I'm happy to come and visit you, let's talk. This national university, they want to collaborate. In fact, their first thing is they're like, can you build a TUJ on our campus? And I just about fell over. This is a Japanese national university. And as I talked about that, I was like, it takes so much to operate one of these. The conditions have to be perfect. We receive no subsidies from Japan. We receive no subsidies from the state of Pennsylvania. We receive no subsidies from the United States government. We receive no subsidies from our main campus up on Broad Street. In fact, we pay them for the privilege to operate. And I said, the things have to be perfectly timed. But the fact that a national university was interested in doing that, I said, let's collaborate in different ways. And they're like, let's get it done. When can we start? Let's start right now. So it's truly been amazing to see the mindset of the Japanese universities that has just flipped. In fact, the campus that we're at now is at the invitation of Showa Women's University. Showa Women's University said, we want to go global. And so they invited the British school, their middle school and high school, onto their campus. And they said, we want Temple to come as well so we can have this global complex. So they actually, they had a gym and a pool that had just been about 10 years old. They knocked the entire thing down and they build our complex that we rent from them. And so truly is an amazing, amazing site. If you're in Tokyo, come see us. I will show you, as we've got 2,000 degree-seeking students that are just thriving, that's there as well. And in the Japanese market, it's been truly amazing to see our applications are up probably over 150% right now. The question is, okay, what is our capacity? Where are things? And, we just moved into Setagaya-ku. We have put together some children's programming to help build bridges for the world and for Japan going forward. We had over 1,000 kids, elementary, middle school, and high school, on our campus in August with our special programming. We had to turn away 400 kids. So it's been amazing to see the impact that Temple has made in Tokyo in the last 40 years. And then the question is, okay, what does the next 40 hold? So instead of me just talking the whole time, you're still awake. It's good, particularly, you know, even after you ate. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you guys might have about Temple, Temple's journey, and the things that of the like that are there. Yes, question.
Thank you. That was amazing. Let me identify myself. I'm Fred Dickinson, University of Pennsylvania. I've been in Pennsylvania for 30 years, and as a Japan guy in Pennsylvania, having to deal with Temple that has this incredible treasure, I must say, you know, and the follow-up to that is omedetou gozaimasu.
Thank you.
I do have three questions, if I may.
Sure.
Two small ones and a bigger one. I'm the Center for East Asian Studies, which is a much smaller operation than your own, but I would appreciate any kind of sort of insights you have for a program. Clearly, you're doing that right. The small questions are, so the 40% Japanese and 40% American, essentially. Am I right to assume that the 40% American, for the most part, those are mostly temporary, like 1 year they're coming from Temple and going back, as opposed to the Japanese who are there for 4 years? Is that correct or not?
No. Not at all. So out of the 1,841 undergraduate students that we have, 141 of those are temporary short-term study abroad. Probably about half of those 141 are from Temple, half are from other universities around the country, and they're there for 1 or 2 semesters. The other 1,700 that we have on our campus, including the Americans, they're there for their degree studies for entire 4 years coming out of high school, or we have a lot of transfer students, many coming from the United States as well, and we're seeing a massive jump. So it's truly amazing. When I was at TUJ in 2003, it would have been short term, it would have been students maybe coming and then transferring out. We really have become a transfer in destination. So like last night, I was down at Invitation speaking at a high school in Baltimore. I've got 5 students out of that high school that want to come directly to Temple Japan's campus for all 4 years. 5 out of a graduating class of 104 want to come to Temple. That would have never have happened 15, 20 years ago, but this is kind of the interest that we're seeing.
Interesting. If I may then, so you're not necessarily then trying to expand the number of Japanese as opposed to, I was assuming that maybe you were, because those are the guys who are kind of paying the big bucks and going for 4 years, but that's not the case, right?
Yeah, it's not the case. So we've got 1,700 that are paying that. And part of the big bucks is there's a secret, don't get me in trouble for it, but you know, you talk about market challenges. So we're kind of capped in terms of what the market will bear with respect to our tuition, right? Because private and public schools, if we want Japanese students, we can't go that high. At the exchange rate right now, which is really favorable, if you're going to travel to Japan, do it now, you know, because it's 140 to the dollar. It was 150 a couple weeks ago, but somebody's been playing some games. But with that, our tuition for 1 year is about $12,500, regardless of whether you're a Pennsylvania resident or not. So at Temple, for instance, I think if you're a resident, it's about $19,000 a year. If you're a non-resident, it's about $38,000 a year. If you're at Penn, I don't know what you guys' tuition is, but it's higher than Temple's considerably as well. So what we're seeing is, I had a father who came to see me with his daughter, and I gave them a personal tour, and this was probably in July. She had her choice of colleges down to 2, George Washington or Temple's Japan campus for the entire 4-year, freshman coming on out. And we had a conversation, we were talking about tuition, and he said, my daughter's got a major scholarship to George Washington, about $35,000 a year, but she would still pay $40,000 in tuition plus living expenses. And he said, I'm doing the calculation here. 4 years at TUJ would be the same as 1 year at George Washington. He's like, can I pay for all 4 years tuition right now and just lock it in? You know, so fortunately she chose us. I didn't take that deal, but you know, it's kind of where things are. So we do have those 1,700 that are looking to do the entire 4 years.
Amazing. I'm sorry, everyone, if I could just ask the one I'm most interested
Sure.
in is the program building. You know, my problem So I love the story about how you finally got the Japanese students.
Mhm.
See, my problem is the opposite. How do I get my own institution to understand the importance of having a satellite campus on Japan?
Mhm.
How did that process go when you were in dire straits in the early 2000s? What was the trick? What did you say to the provost and the president of Temple Philadelphia to convince them that it wasn't a good idea to get the hell out right now?
Yeah, so I mean, my take, and Adelaide could probably answer it even better than I could, but from my observation standpoint, it was individuals inside of the institution that were truly committed to international education. And that's truly what it is. And Bob Reinstein will tell the story of he was sent to Japan to look at whether or not Temple should close its campus or not. And so he was there, went to the campus, and he saw how wonderful it was in this international environment to be able to provide this international education to folks from all around the world. And this was before Temple could sponsor visas. So, it's even more incredible today. And he tells the story, he was in a hotel room after coming back, and the president of the university called, and he's like, "Hey, Bob, have you told them that you need to think about closing the university yet?" And he was like, hello? I think we got a bad connection here. And the president on the other side of the line is yelling, "Bob, can't you hear me? Did you talk about maybe closing the university down, right? I can't hear you. I can't hear you." So he came back to Philadelphia, and it was people like Bob and Adelaide that had conversations internally with the president and provost that said, "Look, this is a gem. This is unique. Nobody else is doing this. Let's hang in and let's do that." So it really was kind of within Temple, those that were committed. And then I also think kind of showing those outcomes that were there as well. And having been at a couple of universities, so I don't think I mentioned, so I was president of the University of Akron in Ohio. I was president of the University of Missouri. It's interesting coming on into those institutions where they didn't have a commitment to international education. And from within, as president, it was a lot easier to do and flip that and to bring that in. But really, I think, to your point, it has to be folks inside banding together, coming forward with proposals that might make sense, that are unique, that are creative, that are innovative, that will help elevate the university. So one of the things that I did at the University of Akron before becoming president, I was dean of the law school, and I'm like, okay, what is going to resonate? So one of the programs I came up with was 2 countries, 3 cities, 4 weeks, Seoul, Tokyo, Nagoya, and we can go, and you can do that for 4 weeks, and you can come on in and you can have all these experiences, visiting the Supreme Court of South Korea, visiting the Constitutional Court there, visiting the Diet in Japan, all of this. And the university administration just jumped at that. They went, wow, nobody else has that. That would be great for our students. And as study abroad and law schools were struggling around the country, boom, before you know it, I had 45 students that were going with me to these countries to do it. Central administration, this is before I became president, they were very supportive of that because it helped attract students and bring it on in.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. In the back.
Well, I want to start by saying that my daughter is in Tokyo, Japan right now on your campus. She told me you're very enthusiastic.
Do you believe her?
I believe her.
Is she having a good time?
She is having the greatest time.
I love it.
Which is part of my question is, tell us about the people who graduated from your program. What happened to them? What are the sort of stories that your friends and how they changed their lives?
I mean, it's really interesting that you asked that, because I just happen to have a slide that's there. So this is from 2019 to 2021, and I love anticipating questions. So anyway, you can kind of see where our graduates are ending up. And so many of them, those big circles, really in Japan, because people come, they have that transformative experience. They're like, I absolutely love Japan. Japan, at least theoretically, needs people. Well, actually, realistically, they need people to stay and they need people to work. And so, we're seeing that as well. But, our students really spread out around the world and, take jobs in different positions. Here is a representative list, and it's just small of some of the companies that recently have hired graduates from our campus. And so really diverse Right now, we're having a week-long Life After TUJ series, where I think we've got 25 of our alums every night, 5 alums coming to speak to our students in different areas. And it's truly amazing to see what they've done. As part of our 40th anniversary, we did our first ever Distinguished Alumni Awards. That was something that I put together. And to give you an idea of some of our graduates, so one of our graduates from Temple University is former ambassador from Macedonia to Japan. So she's one. A university president, so president of actually Showa Women's University, president and representative director of one of the large finance companies in Japan, president and CEO of one of the large transportation companies in Japan. You probably know the company Christian Dior. President of Christian Dior is one of our grads. And then an international lawyer who came to Philadelphia. It's interesting. He was in-house corporate counsel without a law degree in Japan or in the United States. Came to Temple, got his LLM, passed the New York bar, and then he went out and he passed the Japanese bar right after that without even going to Japanese law school. So he works at a big firm that's there as well. So anyway, these are where some of our students end up. We've got one of the students that was in that video. He's just finishing up this semester. He stopped interviewing for jobs on his 8th job offer. And so he's going to be with Oracle that's there as well. So a lot of our students will gravitate to more foreign firms. The students that go to Japanese firms, interestingly, they'll go in and they're like, oh, I feel like my creativity is being squashed. And they end up kind of transferring into the different foreign companies that are there as well. So great question. I'm glad I anticipated that one. Yes?
It shouldn't help to note the third major, the most popular major.
Yes.
Is undecided. You know what are they thinking? What are they studying?
So they're just exploring right now, right? I think a lot of people are coming out of high school and it's like, okay, I'm not sure exactly what I want to major in. And so they'll come in, they'll take their general education classes, and as they're doing that, they'll kind of gravitate to one major or another. So that tends to be what that group is doing.
Is it a typical case in the U.S. university, or is it particularly more?
No, very, very, very typical. Very, very typical. So one of the students that I spoke with in Baltimore last night, she said she checked undecided on her application because she's unsure whether she wants to do art, whether she wants to do Japanese, or whether she wants to do business. So she's going to come in and take classes and then do it. So undecided really is high at American institutions. Interestingly, Japanese universities, they kind of make you lock it in, and it's very difficult to change after the fact. And so that's one of the selling points of Temple is you've got flexibility, not only in when you start, but the majors you take and the things that you're able to do. Yes?
Yeah, this is amazing release. But there was a lecture in UPenn sponsored by Fred Dixon inviting Ambassador Mori.
Yeah.
So there was a good question. The U.S. student, very difficult to enter to hire by Japanese company.
Yes.
But this list, is contradictory.
Mm-hmm.
So is there any difficulty for the U.S. student to work in Japanese company?
There are difficulties, and a lot of it depends on their Japanese language. So for students that speak the N2 level of Japanese, it's very easy for them to get hired. For those that don't, they just need to be more creative in terms of where they look and what they do, right? And so somebody comes in and they're only speaking English, the opportunities are going to be much more limited. And so it is possible. I know people that have been working in Japan for 25 years and they still barely speak Japanese because in their workplace environment, they are speaking English and English only. But those jobs become a little more difficult to find than the ones that are there. So I think that's a big part of that we see in Japan. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes.
My language student, she and Temple.
Yeah.
2009.
Okay. Yes.
Beginning, the first language she already started getting it, but continuous studies are going to be. And then once started going with that, she really loved it that.
Good.
And she had already the idea to stay in Japan and work with it. Then design and tech.
Wonderful. Well, it's wonderful that we've got so many people that are here that have got students or people that they know that are at Temple Japan. And it is. I mean, the students are having a great experience. You know, they want to be there. You know, with COVID, it was really interesting, particularly that our numbers were able to jump so much because we were able to find students, or they found us. We were able to get them to start online with us. And, you know, we really were working hard to get the borders open. And so, you know, as we were advocating, for instance, literally I was giving a national press conference at the Foreign Correspondents Club, and I had so many of our students that were watching live as, you know, we were advocating and talking, and I was taking questions from the press, that it truly was so difficult for those students, and we were with them every step of the way. And the minute that Japan opened its borders in March, it was like, I was like, just get in, you know, just get in, come, even if you're not going to study during the summer, you know, and we will take care of you. So we did special scholarships, we did special outreach, we did a whole host of things for our students to try and make sure that they would get in. And it was kind of interesting when the Prime Minister gave his speech in March, finally saying that he was going to open the country. I had been so vocal about it that NHK, the big, you know, TV station, they actually came to my office and they filmed me watching the Prime Minister's press conference live, and then they panned to me and they said, okay, what do you think about what the Prime Minister just said? And so we had this 4 or 5 minute conversation in Japanese about my impression of what had happened with the border closure, opening it, what more they needed to do as well. And so really tough for our students, and we're so glad that they're in. So love it. Okage-sama de. That's wonderful. All right, my buddy in the temple shirt back there. So when you visited in the summer, we had probably 50% of our classes were in person and 50% of our classes were online this summer. But interestingly, the students took more online classes. So even though it was 50-50, probably 67% of the enrollments were online and 33% were in person. This semester, we have 80% in person and 20% online, and that held. So we have literally 80% in the classroom and 20% online. And so our campus is just vibrant and energetic. And so on Monday, this last Monday, my Dean's Distress Day, I literally gave out 1,000 desserts that was there as well. So we have about 1,100 students in our building every day. Come on over to Tokyo. Any other questions? All right, you guys have been outstanding, and thank you so much for your time today.
There's refreshments and beverages outside. Feel free to stay and mingle, and if you have additional questions, I think Matt will be here for a little while. So thank you all for coming out today.
Thank you. And make sure you grab some chopsticks if you would like on your way out too. So.